Hi, good evening.
Rabbi Harav, how are you?
Baruch Hashem. Hope you had a good holiday.
I did, thank you very much.
Beautiful.
A lot of rain.
Wow. Okay, we'll go on the Facebook here. Okay. Yeah, so according to my marker, we're on Vav. So we already read this in the tour. We said, "Ve'en mamanin ela mi shenitmale zekano." We only, as we said, right, appoint somebody who's to be chazan if he has a full beard. But if he's got just two hairs, only once in a while he can go down there and pray. Otherwise, not so. He can't be permanent. So it says regarding that, it's over there in the first parak of Chulin. Chavdal Amud Bet. Tan Rabbanan, right? The rabbis taught there. If his beard is full, Rawi liot shaliach tzibur. He can be shliach tzibur, which is the chazan. Lered lifnei teva, to go in front of the teva. The teva is the place where they put the Sefer Torah there. The Katva Rashba, so says Rashba V'Aran, De'ainu Dafka Lemanoto Shaliach Tzibur Kavua. So they said this is only regarding somebody who's going to be permanently Shliach Tzibur. Aval Derech Arai, but once in a while, Kishen Sham Elahu, when only he's available. Kol Shehu Ben Yud Gimel V'Yom Echad. As long as he's 13 years old, V'Yored Lifnei Teva, he can go and pray. Like we learned also in this perek Omed Megillah, it's Megillah Chavdal Amud Aleph. Gabe Katan, regarding a Katan, a child, and no Yored Lifnei Teva. So there it says, right, that a child cannot be a Chazan, cannot be Shliach Tzibur. Has to be Bar Mitzvah. Ve'eno Noseh et Kapav, and also he cannot do the priestly blessing.
Kabbalah Harav, I'm sorry. The Shliach Tzibur, isn't that an agent or Shliach? Isn't that what it means?
Right, but the expression means the Chazan, the one who leads the prayers.
So a 13-year-old cannot be a Hassan. Is that, if I'm not understanding?
No, we're saying he's under 13.
Correct?
He's under 13.
Under 13.
So if he's 13, he can go once in a while. But if he's under 13, he can't go at all.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. So, V'gam b'tshuva, so it says also in the tshuva, I'm sorry, I skipped something here. He also cannot do a priestly blessing. So comes out that whoever is gadol means 13 years old, he can be the shliach tzibur. That's only once in a while. That's what it says in the Rosh. Pek Koret Megillah over there. This perek, v'gam b'tshuva, also in the tshuva, he writes, Klal Daled, Katav Ben Yud Gimel. So he says there that a 13-year-old, Yachol Litpalel B'Akra, he can pray once in a while. Katuv b'kolbo, it says in the kolbo, B'Shem Rabbi Natan, Neva Rabbi Natan. And Ish Rashai Lered Lifnei Teva. So he says a person is not allowed to go and pray for the community afilu be'akrai. Even once in a while, be'alma ad she'avish teserot, until he has two hairs. Right, so that's talking about pubic hairs. Ve'agdilu, and it gets big, right? What does that mean? He's 13 years old. That's called gadol. Kedei lachuf roshan likaran. Right, so he's telling you, right, that not only has to have hairs, but they have to be long enough to bend them over to their roots. They have to be a certain length, right, to bend it over back to its root. The Belabach, he says, without that, lo mikre ish, he's not called a man yet, without that. Ve'anan ba'inan tfilat ish, and it says, right, in the Pasuk, has to be a prayer of a man. Shemar, as it says, in Ishayahu, it says, Madua bati ve'en ish, it says, right, God says, why did I come and there's no man there? So as we said, right, the man is somebody who is bar mitzvah. Katav Rashba b'chidushav. So says the Rashba in his chidushim, besop perek kama, in the first perek of Chulin. It says ve'ika lemedak. So you learn from there. He says de'hacha mashma deno rawi lered b'ifnei teva ad shetitmale zekano. That implies that he really shouldn't be going as the shliach tzibur, as a chazan, until he has a full beard. Ve'ilu beperek hakore omed, but it says, but in this other perek, Tanan, we learned over there in Mishnah, katan pores ala shema. Oh, so there it says that the katan, the child, there are certain things he can do. What is one of them? To be pores ala shema. That means he goes up and does the shema for the community, even though they don't really need him for that, because each one does it himself. But he leads the prayers in that regard. He's like pacemaker there, he makes the pace of the prayers. But he cannot do the standing prayer, the Amidah, cannot do. Also, he cannot do the priestly blessing until he has two hairs. So you see from there that once he has two hairs, then he can go and pray. And also do the priestly blessing. Even though he doesn't have a full beard yet. So it says there is a say, it's talking about it's not proper. So it means that it's not proper that the tzibur, the community, should appoint him to be permanent. Mishum kavod tzibur. Only it says because of what's the reason why it's not proper? Because of the honor of the community. In other words, it's not honorable for them, not respectful to them, that they should be led by some kid, who doesn't have even a full beard. But it says to do the priestly blessing and to be a chazan once in a while, even as long as they don't actually appoint him for that. Some permanent, so that he can do. So it says you learn that from the implication. Because here it says that it's proper for him to be shliach tzibur, but look katane kasher, but it's not to say it's kosher. In other words, he's not really kosher, but he can go once in a while. Right, so there's a difference between kosher and somebody who's fitting. So what does that mean? Fitting means that he can do it. Kosher means he's like really, really in his place, right? That's his place. That's really proper for him to do so. But he says he cannot do it until he has two hairs. So it says in Rav Amram's Sidur, Sheshir Rav Netronai. The Rav Netronai had a answer that he gave. Kach Ra'inu Shezeh Shemru. So that's what we see, that which they said, Chachamim, that which the rabbi said, Eno Ver Lifnei Teva, that he cannot go to pray for the people, Ve'eno Noset Kapav, and he cannot do the priestly blessing, Ad Shetit Maleh Zekano, until his beard is full. Kach Mitzvah Min HaMuchar. So that's the proper way to do, the most proper way. Bekama De'efshar Lemehave Gavra Malia Tefei Adif. So he says, whatever is possible to do to be better is better. So what does that mean? To have a full beard is better. Meaning Yenuka. So Yenuka means like somebody who's a kid. So the adult is better than the kid. So what it means to say is that 13 years old, he's still young. He's still like a kid, even though he's called Gadol. Okay, but it says, but of course, if there's no choice, you have nobody else, only him, and it's gonna cause you to lose all these things, right? Kedusha, Baruch, Ve'imloch, all these holy chants that we do in the synagogue, Ve'hez Shemei Rabbah, and also the Kaddish, answering Kaddish. Afilu ben Yud Gimel Yom Echad. So then, if he's even bar mitzvah, that he can go up and do it if there's nobody else there. But the law of Shah Naaseh Shliach Tzibur. When it's not possible, he can be the Shliach Tzibur. The Kaminan, like we said, Rosh Hashanah Kaftet Amud Aleph. Zeh Kelal. That's the general rule. He says, Kol she'eno mechuyav bedavar. Whoever is not obligated in something, eno motzi et harabim yedei chovatan. So he cannot fulfill the obligation of the public. Tama, what's the reason why? Shelo igia lechlal mitzvot, because he's not yet obligated for mitzvot. Aval ben Yud Gimel, but if he's already 13, b'yom echad ki lo efshar shapir dameh. When it's not possible to get somebody else, we can use him. Ad kan leshono, the Rashba. That's the end of the Rashba. Okay, good. B'zeh leshono, b'zah. I'm sorry. V'chen katav Rambam. Also, the Rambam it says like that. Perek chet the minchot tefillah. It says over there in the 8th parak, Halacha Yud Aleph, V'zeh leshono, this language of the Rambam. Umi shelo nitmale zikano, whoever doesn't have a full beard, even though he's big chacham. Oh, he could be a big chacham even. Lo yesh shaliach tzibur, but he shouldn't be yet the chazan. Mipnei kavod hatzibur. Why? It's not honorable, it's not respectful for the community. About pores el hashema, but he can do the Shema, as we said, right? That he's allowed to do. Mishavi shte searot. Once he has 2 hairs, achar Yud Gimel Shana, after he's 13, ad kan devarav. That's the end of his words. If he says, according to this, im ratzu hatzibur limchol, if the tzibur wants to forgive, the community wants to forgive, al kivodam, on their honor, nir'eh she'arashut bi'adam. So they do have the permission to do that. They want to forgive. Interesting. Aval harosh katav, but says the Rosh, b'tshuva klal daled, shemi shelo nitmaleh zikano, that whoever doesn't have a full beard, yachol yitpalel b'akrai. He can pray once in a while, as we said. Ke'echad mibnei ha'ir, just like anybody else. Shenitpalel keshe'aleh, when he prays that when he alibo, whenever he feels like it, whatever. But he shouldn't be appointed from the community to do so, or mipi shliach tzibur, or from the chazan himself, hamane oto, that appoints him, lakel me'alav, to lighten the load off of himself, or litpalel ba'ado, and to pray for him the sha'ot at certain times. That's what Rabbeinu said, the two, afilu yesh echad memuneh, even if there is one already appointed, ela shemimaneh zeh tachtav, but he appoints another guy to be his replacement, litpalel bimkomo, to pray in his place, leitim yeduim, known times, משמע שאף על פי שהציבור מוחלים על כבודם. So it implies that even if the tzibur, even if the community is actually forgiving their honor, whatever their respect, אין למנותו, we shouldn't appoint them anyway. וכן יראה גם כן בדברי הראש, that's what it seems also from the Rosh, he says, שכתב רבנו, that Rabbeinu wrote. So you see from the conclusion here something interesting, right? That we said the reason why a 13-year-old really shouldn't be appointed to be chazan is because it's not respectful for the community. So it seems like even if the community wants to forgive that respect, they do not have the choice to do that. So therefore, they still cannot appoint him, even if they wish to forgive that issue. Interesting. Okay, so we'll do the Shulchan Aruch here. So says Shulchan Aruch like this: Im en sham mi sheyodeh liot shliach tzibur. If there isn't anybody who knows how to be shliach tzibur over there, Kim ben Yud except the bar mitzvah guy, right? 13-year-old. Yom echad mutav shehu shliach tzibur mi sheyibatlu b'nishma kedusha kedushim. It's better that he should be the shliach tzibur than that they should altogether, right, to refrain from doing the prayers and leading the prayers. Somebody should lead the prayers to do all the proper chants that we have to be done. That's what it says in the Shulchan Aruch. Very good. Okay. What else do we have here? So we have to also do this one. It says the Shulchan Aruch, En memanin ela bin sheitmaleh zekano. So as we said, right, you should only appoint somebody who has a full beard because of the respect of the community. But once in a while, if he has two hairs, right, pubic hairs, then he can go and be a chazan. He can, right, in other words, once in a while, not to be appointed. But community should not appoint him, or from also the shliach tzibur himself should not appoint him. They appoint him to lighten the load off him, to pray at certain times. Okay, good. So that's that. Okay, what else we got here? So bottom line, as we said, right, that even though we're not really allowed to appoint him, somebody who's only 13 years old and he's too young or whatever, doesn't have a full beard, but there's no other choice. So yeah, we give him a chance, let him do it. It's better than he should do it than nobody should do it. If nobody knows how to do it besides him. The truth is that I was asked by somebody today, a friend of ours, whose father passed away recently, and he talked to me about the issues, that how do you make a tikkun for your father's soul? How do you rectify his soul? So the truth is that one of the ways that it's done is by being the shliach tzibur, to pray in the tzibur, to be the chazan. But the poskim point out that this only applies if the guy knows how to pray properly, and he's got the proper qualifications to pray like that. But if he doesn't have the proper qualifications, so then it's better that he shouldn't do it. He does more damage than good. So what does that mean, proper qualifications? Besides the things that we already mentioned, There's also the issue that he has to. We mentioned this also before the holiday. We talked about the issue of a person, knowing how to pronounce the words properly, to read properly. Every place according to its custom, because each place has a different custom how to pronounce things. But if he doesn't know how to do that, and he can, he bumbles and fumbles, and jitters and stumbles and stutters. So a person like that really shouldn't read at all because he's not qualified. And first he has to practice, until he gets it down. So you see from there also as a general rule that somebody who wants to be a shliach tzibur has to really know how to read properly the diction. It should be fluent in his mouth. Should be reading it in a nice way. We already discussed that before the holiday, but just to reiterate that, it's a very important thing to understand. But if you don't know how to do it and you can't really train yourself, whatever, so then better not to do it at all. It does more damage than good. When you do it when you stumble and fumble, and stutter, not a good way to pray like that. It's not a good thing. As it says in the Gemara Masechet Brachot, right? It says over there that how do you know if your prayer was accepted, if God accepted your prayer or not? How do you know? Maybe yes, maybe no. You'll find out eventually, right? But what about now? How do you know now? If God accepted your prayers. So the rule is, it says in the Gemara there that if your prayers are fluent in your mouth and they come out well, without stuttering, that means it was accepted. But if you stuttered and mumbled and jumbled, that means your prayer was not accepted. So there you go, right? That's already. So they give you a sign right away from Shemaim, from heaven, if your prayer was accepted or not. That's why there's a story, that's brought down there, also the Gemara. One time, somebody was sick, whatever they say. So he prayed, and so there was one rabbi there, and they asked him, what's going to be with this guy? So he says, oh yeah, he's going to be healed. He said. So they asked the rabbi. They said, are you a prophet? How do you know how do you know the prayer is going to work? What are you, prophetic? What are you? So he says, no, I'm not a prophet, and my father's not a prophet. But he says, I know one thing, that if the prayer went fluently in his mouth, that means it was accepted. If it wasn't fluent in his mouth, it was rejected. Okay, good. Let's go on. So a person, you should see from there that when you pray, make sure you pray at a nice, decent pace. Don't go too fast. Don't run, because this is going to cause your prayers to be, really erratic, not accepted like that. Make sure you're going at a nice, easy pace. Not too fast. As the Shulchan Aruch says, right? Better to do a little, but to read it properly, than to do a lot, but to fumble and jumble. Better to read less, do less and read it properly. It's more accepted than reading a lot and making all kinds of mistakes. Okay, good. Let's go on. So now we're doing Chet and Tet. We got to do here also the tour. 1 second. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's continue. So we're here saying like this, right? That so it says that when he's already grown, he's bar mitzvah, but he doesn't have a beard, as we said. It's possible that he can be appointed to be shliach tzibur. So what does that mean? If you recognize in him that he's already old enough, that he really should have a full beard, right? So we call him that he already has a full beard. So what does he mean to say by this? There are some people, as we talked about this before the holiday, I think David mentioned it, that some people who are getting older, but they don't really have a full beard. They're already getting older, but because of genetic reasons, they don't have a full beard. So he says, because they're already old enough to have a full beard, it's considered to be that they have one. So there, we're allowed to appoint him, he says. So that's the way we can also deduce from the Rambam, in the 15th parak of the laws of Tefillah, Kohen Nar. So he says like this, the Rambam. Kohen, who's a young boy, lo yisa et kapav, he shouldn't do a priestly blessing, ad sheitmale zekano, until his beard is full. Mashma dedavka keshelo nitmale zekano mechamat narut kamar. So it implies that it's talking about where his beard is not full because he's too young. The lo yisa et kapav, then he shouldn't really do the priestly blessing. Ha'im hu gadol, but if he's already big enough, that already his beard should be full, according to his age, even though he doesn't really have one yet, a beard, klal at all, no beard. No set kapav. So a person like that, he can already do the priestly blessing. And even though that person doesn't have a full beard, shouldn't really do the priestly blessing. But these guys are already considered to be that he already has a full beard because he's old enough to have one. So he says, I found the source for my words. Masechet Sofrim. In Masechet Sofrim, Perek Yudaled, Lachil Zayin, Ve'over Lifnei Teva. So it says there like this, that a person who goes to pray for the community, the Anoset Kapav, and also the one who does the priestly blessing, Ad Sheyeh Ben Asrim Shana, until he's 20 years old, Ubal Zakan, and with a full beard. Aval En Lo Zakan, Vehu Ben Asrim, but he says if he doesn't have a full beard, but he's already 20, Afa Pi Shenireh Kesaris, even though he looks like he's a saris. Now, what's a saris? Saris is a person who doesn't have the signs of puberty, like he never grew up, he never matured. So some say even somebody who's a saris, who never really matured, even he's allowed. But he says, but if he already has a beard, it's already allowed from the age of 18. To go in front of the, to pray for the people, and to do a priestly blessing. So you learn from here, right, like this, that it depends, right? If he already has a full beard, so then the crossover age will be 18. Once he crosses the age of 18, so he's going to be good to be appointed. But if he doesn't have a full beard, because, of genetic reasons, whatever, some people like that, they don't have. Some Ashkenazim like this, some Chinese people also, Oriental, they don't have, because of genetics. So he says that, so what's the story with that? That if he's 20, says the Rambam, he's allowed to be the Shliach Tzibur, even though he has nothing. Totally smooth like a child. וכתוב בנימוק יוסף, so it says נימוק יוסף, קורא עומד בשם הגאונים, it says over there in the name of גאונים, דמי שאין לו רק זקן מועט. So what about, it says over there, what about if he has a little beard, not too much, right? He's not full. כיוון שהוא בן שנים כמי שנתמלא זקנו דמה. It's considered to be like he has already a full beard. So meaning what? If he has the proper age, he's good. Beautiful. Okay, that's great. Okay. The reason I paused, by the way, beforehand is because I thought there was a tour over here, but apparently there isn't. It's just Beit Yosef. I was looking for the tour, but it was not found because I don't think it exists. Okay, so now let's go to Shulchan Aruch, Chet and Tet, and we'll see what it says there. It says in Shulchan Aruch, Mi she'eno ba'al zakan. So it says if he doesn't have any beard, but we know that he's already old enough that he should have a full beard. So we call him that he's full beard. Hilkach says, therefore, ben kaf shana afa pi she'eno zakan. If he's 20 years old, even if he doesn't have any beard, we're allowed to appoint him to be the Shliach Tzibur. So this is the way the Beit Yosef paskined, and same thing we see here in Shulchan Aruch as well. So says the Rama here, V'chen im haya lo zakan. So says the Rama, even if he had a zakan, even if he had a beard, afilu me'at, but a little bit, not too much. He had like a mini beard, one of those minis. So we call him that he's already considered to be full. So he says, right, as long as he's 18. So the Ramah here brings the Beit Yosef. So basically, right, this is the halakha. There's no contradiction here whatsoever. So again, right, to recap this, if he's got a full beard, already at the age of 18, he's good. If he doesn't have a full beard, if he has a partial beard, but we know that he's 18, right? So then he's good. If he has no beard whatsoever, nothing, then if we know that he's 20, he's good. This is the halakha. Okay, very good. That's Chet. We have one more Shulchan Aruch. So says Tet, Saris. Okay, so Saris, as we said, right, is a person who doesn't have symbols of puberty. Yesh omrim shemutar limanoto im hu ben 20. Some say that it's allowed to appoint him as long as he's 20 years old. So, yeah, it's a little bit strange. Why? Because a person like this, doesn't have signs of puberty, what happens is that he doesn't sound like a man sometimes, sounds like a little boy or a girl, like it doesn't have masculinity, in his voice. So he sounds a little bit strange. But nevertheless, he's got the age, he's got 20 years old. So therefore, the halacha is that we can appoint him. Okay, well, you can imagine what that's going to sound like, but whatever it is, it is. The word saris, it really means like a person who's castrated, but that's not always the meaning, the word saris. Sometimes it just means he never went through puberty, stayed like a child. So he doesn't look like a man, he doesn't, he looks like a boy. Okay, good. Let's go on to Tet. I'm sorry, I think we did Tet. We got to Yud now. Yes. Yes, we're going to Yud. Yeah, actually, right. I think we skipped this one. We never read it. It's from Vav, so I'll just read it now. We never got to this one. So it says like this: Katava kolbo. Says the kolbo, sheno rashai liot shliach tzibur kavua ad shetitmale zekano atachton ad kan leshono. So the kolbo says a little bit differently, right? We already just mentioned that in order to be a permanent chazan, he needs to have a full beard, right? But the Kolbo says no, it's not talking about the beard, it's talking about the pubic hairs, right? If he has a full pubic hairs setup, right, then he's allowed to be, otherwise not. So he says it's talking about only the pubic hairs. So it says in Bet Yosef, he comments on this, mashma midvarav, implies from his words, that which it says, right, that he has to have a full beard. It's talking about the pubic hairs. It's a euphemism, you know what I mean? Without sounding very rough, right? Without sounding very nasty, whatever. But it says the other poskim don't seem to write this way. They wrote like according to the simple meaning of this expression. Zaken, I know, because when you talk about the beard, you're talking about the beard on the face, right? Not the pubic hairs. Okay, so in other words, Bet Yosef says, right, that even though the Kolbo says this is not the halacha, because it's a minority opinion, basically, right? That's one thing. And then he goes on to say that Tosfot Katvu, but says Tosfot, Besof Perek Kama Techulin, end of first parak of Chulin, Chav Dal Amud Bet, Tehad Etan Rabbanan, Nitmalez Zekano, Rawi Liot Shliach Tzibur, that which the rabbis taught, that if he has a full beard, he can be Shliach Tzibur, Hainu Le'asot Shliach Tzibur Kavu, it's talking about being permanent, right? Permanently, as we said. להתפלל בתעניות ומעמדות דווקא. So he says, but it's only talking about praying for fast days, and things like this, special occasions. Not for regular days. So it says, it implies from their words, that the rest of the year, when you have the normal prayers, even though he doesn't have a full beard, he is fitting to be the Shliach Tzibur, but at the end of this parak he says, that which it says in Chulin to be a permanent Shliach Tzibur, and to pray for the community on the Yom Kippurim, Tanyot B'Mamadot, fast days and special occasions like that. That's like the same as the Rosh, he says. Rashba, Be'aran, Zav. But it says from the words of Rabbeinu, the Tur, the Mefarshim, and all the commentaries that we wrote, So it comes out from their words, it's clearly implied that a katan, somebody who's not he's not gadol yet, he's a child, cannot go pray for the community. Afilu be'akra, even once in a while, he cannot do. If he's under 13. Be'alma ve'esh li tmua. So he says, therefore, it's a wonder. So there is a custom like this in certain places. He says where the katan, the child, goes to pray for the community. Motzi Shabbat, right after Shabbat goes out for Arvit. So it's possible to say so it says maybe we can say like this, that the rabbis were not really particular about Arvit, only about Shachrit, only the morning prayers, not Arvit, the evening prayers. Sheyesh bebrachot yotzer ubetfilah kedusha v'gam shetzarich shliach tzibur lachazor tefillah lemotzi ravim idei chotam. Because over there in Shachrit it's different. Why? Because you have there, right, all kinds of other things that require a minyan, that require a real chazan. For instance, to do Chazrat Hashatz, to repeat the Shmona Esrei, repetition of the Shmona Esrei, that's one thing. In order to fulfill the obligation, people don't know how to pray. And also Kiddusha. So he says that since a child is not obligated for these things, he cannot really fulfill their obligation at all. As we learned in the Mishnah, whoever is not obligated to something, he cannot fulfill the obligation of others either. So he says, I heard so I heard that this rabbi objected against his custom. He didn't like it. That the children go to lead the prayers on Motzi Shabbat. This guy also agreed with him, this rabbi. Marav Yitzchak De Leon. Oh, De Leon. That sounds familiar, no? We know somebody like that. De Leon? Okay, yeah. So there you go. We have a De Leon there. So he also objected against this custom, this rabbi. Yitzchak De Leon. Okay, so then Levatel Minhag. So he says this custom should be abolished, he said. So it says, Matzati le Rashba. I found the Rashba, says, Shkatav b'tshuva, he wrote in the tshuva, B'shem Ravad, name of the Ravad, the Tama, the Tanan, the Katan. So he says the reason that we learned in the Mishnah, the Katan eno pores al Shema, the Katan cannot do the Shema, and it cannot also lead the prayers. The Chevan, the Brachot, V'tfilot, the Rabbananinu. So he says, since these blessings and prayers are rabbinical, Katan shegia lechinuch, the Rabbanan have, and the Katan, the child who already is at the age of training, it's also the Rabbanan, it's also rabbinically obligated, right, to pray. So he's obligated from the rabbis, and he's also fulfilling the obligation of the rabbis by other people. Kamash Malan comes to tell you the Mishum Kavod Tzibur, but still there's a problem there. Why? Because of the honor of the community, right? The respect of the community. Right? We shouldn't do it. Genaihu L'Tzibur. It's a disgrace for the community. Shekatan Motzian, that the Katan, the child, should fulfill their obligation. Interesting. Well, so it's according to this reasoning, Yesh Makom Leminhag Lomar, there is a place for this custom to say Shatzibur Mochalim Ala Kevodam, that the community forgives their honor. Ve'afilu Lemay Piresh Rashi, even according to the way Rashi explained, the Tama de Matnitin Mishum Dechol Shenok Michuyav. The reason of the Mishnah is because whoever is not obligated b'davar, eno matziyat devarabim yedei chavatam, he cannot fulfill the obligation of others. Ikal ememar the tfilat arvid shani, but we can still say, right, that arvid is different. Why? The reshuti, because it's not really obligation tfilat arvid. It's only optional, right? It's an optional mitzvah, according to the Talmud. There's a machloket about that, by the way. There's a dispute about that in the Talmud, whether arvit is optional or it's mandatory. So the truth is, the halacha comes out right, like in the middle, a compromise. In some ways it's mandatory, some ways it's not mandatory. We'll get to that later, B'ezras Hashem. Different time. So then he goes on to say here, Ve'zeh lashon Adonai Avi Roshal b'tshuva. So this is the language of the tshuva, the Rosh. Mach katabta shenahagu be'elu mekomot. That what you wrote that they were custom in these places. The tshuvot klal dalet. So he says it's in the it's in the tshuvot over there in klal dalet. Katav Mari Avuhav. Says Mari Avuhav. Shalem milekarev zera rechokim perush davar agun v'na'eh lekarev l'sham melu rechokim me'enei ha'am שאינם בעלי יחס בקצת הספרים שהנוסחה שלום שלום לקרוב מזרע רחוקים יראה שפירושו כאמרם ז"ל שלום שלום מרחוק ונתקרב ושהוא נאמר על בעל התשובה גם כן לומר מכאן שהוא קרוב לשם שהוא ממשפחה זויה יותר מזרע שהוא משפחה מיוחסת והוא רשע. So I wanted to finish this whole thing before I translate it for you because I wanted to get the whole context here, what he's trying to say here. So this rabbi is saying something we mentioned before, that a Baal Tshuva is allowed to be Shliach Tzibur. Even though, he did some sins before, and he got, some kind of a bad name there, whatever, they were gossiping about him, he does all kinds of stuff. But if he did Teshuvah, it became a real, Baal Tshuva. So we do allow him, and, not only, so he brings here, this concept in the Torah. The truth is, that a person who came from not such a good family and, did Teshuvah, he's considered to be closer to Hashem than somebody who came from a good family, but, he's messed up, right? He's a mess. So, in other words, the most important thing is what you are, not what your family is. That's the most important thing. So, therefore, right, you see from here that we should allow somebody who's a Baal Tshuva to be a Shliach Tzibur. And we already mentioned, right, same applies also for a convert as well. Okay, very good. So let's see the Shulchan Aruch. So it says in Shulchan Aruch like this: Yesh lilmod zechut hamekomot shenohagim haktanim. So it says there is, we can respect these people a little bit, right? That they have this custom where the katan, right, the child, yordim lifnei teva litpalel tfilat arvit, that he goes to pray tfilat arvit Motzei Shabbat, right, to be the leader, the tzibur. I think I've seen this custom, by the way, amongst the Ashkenazim, right? Some of them, they do this. So says Shulchan Aruch, we can leave them alone, and we don't have to object against this custom. So what's the reason why? As we already mentioned, right? Because really, technically speaking, it's really not so bad from several viewpoints, right? As we mentioned in the Beit Yosef. Number one is that really Arvit, anyway, there's really not much being said there that requires the community, fulfilling the obligation from the Chazan. That's one thing. There's no Chazrat Hashatz, repetition of the Amidah. There's no Kedusha there. There is Kaddish. There's Baruch Hu. Okay, there are some little things there. That's one thing. Number two, also, as we said, right, that since a Katan, he's really obligated from the rabbinically to do these things because of Chinuch, because he has a mitzvah to be trained, the mitzvot. So therefore, rabbinically, he's also obligated to pray from the age of 9, right, whatever it is. So since he's obligated from the rabbis to pray, and these prayers are anyway rabbinical, so he does fulfill the obligation of the community, technically speaking, because of that. That's reason number 2. Reason number 3, it says Beit Yosef also, since Arvit is Reshut, right, it's only optional, the mitzvah of Arvit, so therefore we don't have to be so particular about it. So because of all these 3 reasons, okay, we'll let him slide, we'll let him deal with that. So says Rama, but he says in places where they don't have this custom, then they shouldn't do it. Only in places which have a custom to do it. Even if he got to 13 years, Shabbat, right, on Shabbat, he became 13, and Shabbat. He shouldn't do the Arvit of Shabbat to have it Adain en lo Yud Gimel Shana, because he's still not yet fully bar mitzvah age. Right, when he comes to shul erev Shabbat, because he needs to have the day come in. So he's in terms of the hours. So therefore, he's not really fully bar mitzvah yet. So says the Rama, right, in places where they don't have the custom, you shouldn't do this. It's not, only places that are accustomed to do it. And that's that. Okay, very good. Maybe we can do one more. We have a few more minutes. So it says Bet Yosef here, Katav Rashba. Tshuva of the Rashba brings here, Shalta, Shaliach Tzivur Shekulo Areb. So you have a Chazan who has a good voice, but he takes his time, he likes to, do those nice melodies, those melodies, once you draw them out, they can take quite a while. So why does he do that, right? To pray so long like that? Because he wants to show off, and show people how great his voice is, He's an opera singer, He's, got that voice, got that magic touch. Look at me, wow, look at me, how good I am, huh? I can blow this the walls away over here. I can make the walls shake from my voice. Right? The people like this. I remember, when I was living in Jerusalem, in Har Nof, in that place, the beautiful neighborhood there. So there was a lot of good chazanim there, really, incredible voices these people had. So it was really incredible to listen to them. In Jerusalem, there's a lot of talented people there. Wow. Incredible. It's very enjoyable to listen to them, I remember there was this one guy who was Ashkenazi, and he was American, but he lives in Israel. And he has an incredible voice, like an opera singer, he's really, really good. So one time, I was going somewhere to some building over there, one of the buildings, and I go into the lobby and I start hearing this guy's voice in the lobby, So it turns out now I knew he lives there, in that building. His voice is so loud, you can hear him in the lobby, from his apartment. It was incredible. I was like, oh my God, this guy is really good, So there's all kinds of good people like that, really professional people. But the thing is, that if you're doing it to show off, that's what he's talking about here, a little bit. So the question is like this, right? If you have somebody like this who does the prayers very long, because he wants everybody to hear his opera voice, his angelic voice, So should we object against him and tell him, listen, buddy, let's cut it out, let's get it over with, I can't stay here all day, what I mean? Let's do the express route. Go into the express lane a little bit, whatever. So can we object against him? That's the question, right? Teshuvah, dvarim elu achar kavanat halev hem amurim. So says Rashba, these things are according to judgment, proper judgment. Im shliach tzibur zeh sameach belibo ala shenoten hoda ala Hashem yitbarach. If the shliach tzibur is doing it for Hashem, to sanctify the name of God, he's with his beautiful voice, b'neima tavo ala bracha. So then says the Rashba, he'll be blessed for that, because he's sanctifying the name of God. That's beautiful. That's one thing. Because he says one of the obligations anyway, one of the qualifications for a shliach tzibur is they should have a good voice. So that's exactly what we want, in a sense. Tanya, Like we learn right to bet the Taniot over the Tanit. Tet Zayin Amud Aleph. Rabbi Yehuda, it says Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Merutze le'am v'yesh do ne'ima v'kolo arev. So it says Rabbi Yehuda, right? You should have a good voice, pleasant voice. But he says, you know what? He's got to be serious about it, though. You know. In other words, you have to pray with fear from God, you know, and seriousness. Don't turn into some kind of a joke, you know, some kind of a show off, you know, kind of thing. I mean, you have to be serious about it. After all, you're praying to God, you know. You're not showing off. That's not the point. Like it says over there in this Perek. לפיכך שליח ציבור זה אם שמח ועומד ביראה הרי הוא משובח. So therefore, if he's doing it in a way which is happy, you know, to serve Hashem from fear of God, that's praiseworthy. אבל אם מכוון לשמיעות קולו ושמח בקולו, but if he's doing it to show off, you know, to show his voice, it's considered to be disgraceful. You know, like, what are you going on, an ego trip with your voice now? It's an ego trip for you? That's not good, you know. We don't want ego people, egomaniacs, you know, going up there and showing off their voice. So that's the thing, you know, that a person should be able to tell this chazan, you know, is he doing it for the right reason or doing it for the wrong reason? Usually you can tell, by the way, if you're clever. You can tell by his attitude, you know, how he does it, how he approaches it. You can tell. If you have a good judgment, good ear. So so it says, right, regarding this, says, so there are verses which say, right, that, you know, Hashem hates, you know, these voices, you know, these singers, these opera people. Why? Because they're not doing it for the proper reasons, you know. That's the thing. If they're doing it for the wrong reasons, to show off, Hashem hates that. He doesn't love it. So it says, nevertheless, he says, Kol shemarich b'tfilato lo tov asa. Look what he says, right? He says, nevertheless, right, regardless of all that, whoever, you know, prays too long, it's not good. You know, it takes too much time. Right? So he says, because why? Because you're bothering the community like that, you know, making them wait. You know, it's not nice, you know, like what, you know. How long do you want to keep them there? They have to go eat, you know, they're hungry, they got things to do. You know, don't hold them up all day, you know, with your opera voice. You know, don't go crazy, you know, you have to know there's limits to everything. So a person has to realize, you know, and by the way, I can tell you that just as a, you know, reference point for this, when I was praying at Maran, you know, my rabbi, the chazanim that were there, were all very professional, you know, and very God-fearing. So they never prayed, you know, to show off. They had beautiful voices, you know, like angelic, very beautiful stuff. The best chazanim in the world were there. But you could tell that they were doing it, you know, not to show off. They were doing it to please Hashem, to please, you know, the community, you know, make everybody feel spiritual. You know, it's a nice, holy feeling, you know. So, and because of that, these chazanim, you know, even though they had a great voice, they never held you up a long time, you know. You never had to leave the shul very late. Always we left on time and early even, right? Even though they were great chazanim, but they didn't, you know, go too far. You know, stretching out their voices, you know, until the end of the world, you know, until your breath runs out from your lungs, you know, too much. So they did just the right amount. That it should be beautiful, it should be spiritual, you know, but not a burden, you know, on my shoulders, you know, my back, you know. I don't want a burden. Don't burden me with your, you know, long prayers. Not interested in that. I mean, that's the whole thing. That's what the Rashba is saying over here. So, right, learn from here, right? A good lesson, the very important halakha. So we'll do a Shulchan Aruch and we'll stop there. This is very important stuff. A lot of people don't realize these things. That's why, you know, I'll tell you honestly, when I go to a shul, you know, to see if the shul is good or not, the first thing I notice is that, you know, the first thing I look for is that they're praying too long. You know, if they're going too long, that means it's not a good minyan. because they don't care for the community, like they're just keeping them there for hours and hours. Hours and hours on top of hours, You shouldn't do that. People have what to do in their life. You can't just keep them there like that. Make it normal, be normal, sing nice, be good, make your voice beautiful, but don't make people crazy. So that's the first thing I look for. Because in the Minyan Maran, my Rabbi Shalom, it was always, short and sweet, never too long. Shabbat was never more than 2 hours, the prayer, usually less. Shabbat. Rosh Hashanah was never more than 4 hours. Yom Kippur was never more than 5 hours. That's it. So that means that, even on Rosh Hashanah, we finished like 10:30, 11:30. That's it. Yom Kippur also. We never finished any prayers after 12. No such a thing like that. Even Yom Kippur. We never did that. It's not proper to keep the community that long. They can't concentrate. You're making them crazy. So it says in Shulchan Aruch, Shliach Tzibur shemarich b'tfilah. So it says, right, if you have a Shliach Tzibur that's going too long with his prayers, in order they should hear his nice voice, if he's doing it to please Hashem, that he's sanctifying the name of God, so he gets blessed. But it's only if he's serious though. And he's fearful of God. But if his intention is just to show up his voice, and he wants people to, to give him honor, he wants to be honored, and respected and revered. So how does it make money? That's disgraceful. A person like that. It says, nevertheless, so it says, nevertheless, bottom line is what? No matter what your intention is, don't go too long. You make people crazy like that. That's it. Shabbat, 2 hours. That's it. It shouldn't be more than that. If they're praying 3-4 hours on Shabbat, find another minyan. It's not a good minyan. Okay. Chazak Baruch. Baruch Adonai le'olam. Amen amen. God bless you. See you tomorrow. B'ezrat Hashem. Have a great evening. And learn more Torah and be holy. B'ezrat Hashem. Amen amen.
Thank you so much, Kabbalah. Amen.
Thank you.